The Zodiac Story, an investigation. Today, I'm going to talk about one of the most famous serial killers in history. The story of the Zodiac is something every American knows. Countless books have been written, several films have been made, including David Fincher's masterpiece, and there are thousands of videos about him on YouTube. So why should you watch this one? Can there really be anything new to say? Surprisingly, yes. And today, I'm going to prove it. Let's start with a bit of background. The Zodiac is the name used by a serial killer who operated in California in the late 1960s and early 1970s. He's often called the American Jack the Ripper, not only because he sent taunting letters to newspapers, but also because, just like Jack, he was never caught. Although, a few years ago, a group of independent investigators claimed they had finally uncovered the Zodiac's true identity. But how much truth is there to that claim? Let's find out. We like to believe that time clears away the fog of uncertainty, that the passing years bring new knowledge powerful enough to unravel what once seemed impossible to understand. But the Zodiac case is living proof that time alone doesn't bring clarity. Decades have gone by, and yet the truth remains as elusive as ever. This case stands apart from anything else in American criminal history. How many victims did he really have? 5, officially linked by investigators? Or 37, as the killer himself claimed? Or maybe he never even said that at all. He was the most mysterious and frustrating adversary law enforcement in the San Francisco Bay Area had ever faced. And to this day, no one fully understands why he was never found. One thing, however, is certain. The Zodiac got exactly what he wanted. Even 50 years later, he's still at the center of attention. Chapter 1. Who was the Zodiac? I want to report a murder. I love killing people because it's so much fun. That's how one of the most terrifying cases of the 20th century began. The story of the Zodiac, a serial killer who terrorized California in the 1960s and 70s. Books have been written about him. Hollywood made movies, including David Fincher's Zodiac. And yet, half a century later, the killer remains a mystery. The Zodiac, the pseudonym of a murderer who operated around San Francisco, was called the American Jack the Ripper. Like the Ripper, he sent letters to newspapers, mocking police and reporters. He was never caught. And that's exactly what made him a legend. Chapter 2. The First Murders. December 20th, 1968, Vallejo, California. On a deserted road, police discovered a car with 2 teenagers inside. 17-year-old David Faraday and 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen were both shot. David took a bullet to the head. Betty Lou was hit 5 times in the back. She was running away. It was the first murder in the area in 5 years. There were only a few shell casings and a bullet-riddled car. The ex-boyfriend was questioned, but his alibi was airtight. The investigation stalled. No motive, no suspects, just fear. Chapter 3. Independence Day. July 4th, 1969, 6 months later. Just after midnight, a series of gunshots rang out in Blue Rock Springs Park. Police found a parked car, windows shattered. Darlene Ferrin was dead. Michael Mageau was barely alive. He described his attacker as a white male, 26 to 30 years old, heavy build, curly brown hair. 40 minutes later, police received a call from a calm, emotionless voice. If you drive 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you'll find 2 kids in a car. I used a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye. The call was traced to a payphone just a few blocks from the police station. Chapter 4. The Letters and Ciphers. On August 1st, 1969, 3 Bay Area newspapers received nearly identical letters. Each contained threats, and 1/3 of a cryptogram made of 408 symbols. The killer demanded publication on the front page, promising to kill again if ignored. When decoded, the message read, "I like killing people because it's so much fun. It's more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. When I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and those I have killed will become my slaves." There was no name in the cipher, just his madness and his craving for immortality. Psychologists later described the Zodiac as isolated, narcissistic, sexually frustrated, and obsessed with power and fame. Killing was his way of proving he existed. Chapter 5. The Lake Berryessa Attack, September 27, 1969. At Lake Berryessa, a young couple, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, were relaxing by the water. A man dressed in black approached them. He wore a hood with a white crosshair symbol drawn on the chest. He tied the couple up and stabbed them repeatedly. Cecilia died. Brian survived. On their car door, the killer wrote, Vallejo, December 20th, 1968, July 4th, 1969, September 27th, 1969. Another taunting message from the Zodiac. Chapter 6. The Taxi Murder. October 11th, 1969, San Francisco. Taxi driver Paul Stein picked up a fare. At the end of the ride, his passenger shot him in the head, cut off a piece of his blood-soaked shirt, and disappeared. Days later, that same piece of fabric arrived in the mail inside a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle. Patrol officers actually stopped the Zodiac minutes after the murder, but they let him go. The dispatcher had mistakenly described the suspect as a black man. The real killer walked away. Chapter 7. Panic and Fame. After the taxi murder, the Zodiac threatened to blow up school buses. San Francisco went into panic mode. Armed escorts for students, patrol helicopters overhead, but nothing happened. The Zodiac wanted attention, not action. He kept writing letters, filled with spelling mistakes, taunts, and delusions of grandeur. He threatened, demanded publication, but never followed through. Every threat was empty, every word a plea to be noticed. Chapter 8. The Obsession with Letters. By 1970, the Zodiac had turned from killer to celebrity. He flooded newspapers and police with rambling letters. He claimed new victims that didn't exist, and even wrote a poem about his slaves in paradise. His famous 340 cipher would remain unsolved for decades, until 2020, when it was finally decoded. The message? The same chilling nonsense. I am not afraid of the gas chamber, because it will send me to paradise sooner, where I have enough slaves to work for me. Nothing new, just the same madness and better handwriting. Chapter 9. The Suspects. Arthur Lee Allen, a Navy veteran living near the first murder scene. A friend told police that Allen once said he wanted to call himself the Zodiac and kill people. After his house was searched, the Zodiac letters stopped, but his fingerprints, handwriting, and DNA didn't match. Gary Post, a retired Air Force veteran, painter by trade. Independent investigators claimed in 2021 that he was the Zodiac. He had a scar on his forehead and lived near an early crime scene. But again, no proof. No DNA, no matches, no connection. Just another headline. Chapter 10. The Disappearance. In 1974, the Zodiac sent one last letter, a bizarre review of The Exorcist, calling it the best comedy ever. After that, he vanished. At this point, investigators had identified a fingerprint from a phone booth linked to the Zodiac, tire tracks from his car, a physical description. Several patterns could also be discerned from his crimes. 1. All victims were young couples. 2. Attacks occurred on weekends or holidays, in the dark. 3. There was no sexual motive. 4. He used different weapons each time. 5. The killer had a tendency to boast about his crimes. 6. All murders happened near cars and bodies of water. It was a significant amount of information, though soon the investigators almost discarded much of it while searching for matches. The taxi driver murder. On October 11, 1969, the Zodiac killed taxi driver Paul Stein. The crime seemed completely different. The victim was a lone adult man, and the murder took place in broad daylight on the streets of San Francisco, not in a remote area. For the first 3 days, Stein's death was treated as a routine robbery. Then, the San Francisco Chronicle received a letter from the Zodiac. This is the Zodiac speaking. I am the killer of the taxi driver on Washington Street last night. Proof is a piece of his bloody shirt. I am the same person who slaughtered people on the north side of the bay. San Francisco police could have caught me yesterday if they had searched the park properly. The Zodiac knew that simply confessing wasn't enough. He needed to prove he had committed the crime. He sent a piece of Stein's shirt as evidence. Interestingly, a call to the police came in while he was still cutting the driver's clothing. Teenagers from a neighboring house had witnessed the attack. They described the assailant just like previous victims, a tall, heavy-set white man. By an incredible coincidence, the dispatcher listed the suspect as black. Patrol officers immediately stopped a man fitting that description and asked if he had seen a black guy with a gun. The Zodiac eagerly agreed and pointed in a direction, and, of course, he was never caught. In the letter, he claimed to have hidden in a nearby park the whole time, but in reality, the area had been thoroughly searched with bright floodlights and 7 police dogs. He was simply boasting about outsmarting the police, though poorly. Publicizing the letters also backfired on the police. Numerous people pretended to be the Zodiac, and others reported suspicious neighbors. Every lead had to be checked. The most famous incident was a call to a TV studio. The Zodiac demanded 2 well-known California attorneys, Mel and Lee Bellick, appear on the show. The broadcasters turned it into a spectacle. Then, a man claiming to be the Zodiac called and spoke about his fear of the gas chamber. The conversation was ultimately meaningless. Cipher 340 and Fading Threats. Cipher 340 was another Zodiac cryptogram, deciphered only in 2020. In it, he wrote, "I hope you enjoy trying to catch me. It wasn't me on the TV show. As for me, I do not fear the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise sooner, and because I have enough slaves to work for me there, where no one else has anything, while they are in paradise. That is why they fear death, and I do not, because I know my new life will be easy in paradise." Nothing new. He merely confirmed that the TV call wasn't him and repeated his strange ideas about slaves in paradise. Even if the letter had been deciphered in 1969, it would not have helped the investigation. Suspects. Over the years, police investigated roughly 2,500 potential Zodiac suspects. 2 stood out. Arthur Lee Allen. Many believed he was guilty. In the late 1950s, Allen served in the Navy and later lived in Vallejo, just 10 minutes from the first murder. After the second crime, he moved 50 kilometers away. His diving hobby coincided with the locations of attacks. Allen was interrogated but never confessed. Indirect evidence was significant. His friend Donald Cheney claimed Allen had spoken of an irresistible urge to kill and his intention to adopt the alias Zodiac. Others said he kept a notebook with coded messages. In 1969 to 1970, while working as a school janitor, he allegedly sent letters threatening to bomb a school bus. Still, there was no direct evidence. Neither handwriting nor fingerprints matched. After a search of his trailer, the Zodiac stopped sending letters. In 1975, Allen was convicted not for murder, but for molestation of minors. Conclusion. It seems the mystery of the Zodiac will never be solved, and honestly, maybe that's for the best. The truth would probably disappoint everyone. This guy wasn't some criminal mastermind. There have been far smarter, far bloodier killers. He was just a bitter nobody, angry at the world, desperate for cheap fame, desperate to finally be noticed, to be feared. And people do still talk about him, but only for one reason: because he was never caught. Unsolved mysteries always attract attention. Unfortunately, that's the formula for anyone who believes you can't make a name for yourself by doing something good.